Good evening. My name is Amy Seward, and I will serve as moderator for this candidate forum. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, and the City of Laverne. The League believes that candidate forums provide an excellent opportunity for voters to become more familiar with the candidates and with their positions. It is my pleasure to welcome both the audience here at the Laverne City Hall and our viewers at home for this program. Please know that as the moderator, I am not publicly affiliated with any candidate or any party. This evening, we will be hearing remarks from the candidates for the City of Laverne Board of Aldermen. Before introducing the candidates, I would like to outline the procedure for the forum. Each candidate will be asked to make an opening statement in a 2-minute period. When all candidates have completed the opening statement, then several additional questions will be asked. The candidates will respond to each of those questions with a 1-minute answer. The candidates will be allowed 2 minutes to answer the last question and make any closing remarks. We want to take this opportunity to thank all of the residents who took the time to send in questions for tonight's forum. These questions were reviewed by a committee of the League of Women Voters, and several questions regarding the topics submitted by citizens were included in the list that was forwarded to me and to the candidates. I have selected the questions to ask this evening that will address many, but certainly not all of the current issues facing the City of Laverne due to our time constraints. Again, I want to thank all of the candidates for their gracious acceptance of our invitation to participate in this event. Starting first with introductory remarks tonight is Mr. Graeme Coates.
Good evening and thank you. I've been a Laverne resident for 28 years. I've been married to my wife Tammy for 31 years. I grew up and attended colleges in Cambridge, England. We live in Lake Forest Estates. I own a business here in the city. I've been in aviation for 40 years. I'm also a general aviation pilot. I've worked with the present and past 6 mayors on different boards and committees, volunteering my time, been part of the Planning Commission for 20 plus years. I've seen tremendous growth in the city and the financial impact, and I feel I can continue to be a great asset to the City of Laverne. I'm also representing the city on several boards, including the Board of Zoning Appeals and Economic Development Advisory Committee. I've been an alderman for the past 2 years, and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have worked hard to institute major infrastructure projects, including, but not limited to, the widening of South Walden Road from I-24 to Rock Springs Road, building a new fire station on Old Nashville Highway, planning ahead by approving the cost to survey the planned widening of Old Nashville Highway. In addition, continuing and funding the plans for new city facilities. The Planning Commission and city staff are presently going through the lengthy process of updating the city's zoning and subdivision regulations, which have not been done since the 90s. I've been able to utilize my knowledge of planning and zoning for structure and regulations which will bring the city at the forefront of surrounding cities and counties. Laverne needs quality leadership with experience and knowledge to continue its growth. With my long involvement with the city, I feel I can continue moving the city in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Haas.
Good evening, citizens of Laverne. Thank you to the Rutherford County League of Women Voters for planning this forum. I'm Carol V. Haas, member of the Laverne community since 1997. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army Reserves, serving 25 honorable years, and was deployed in support of the Persian Gulf War and 3 times for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I served in various leadership roles during my time in the service to include company commander, detachment commander, and battalion commander of various military police units. I've been employed at Vanderbilt University for 32 years, rising in the ranks from secretary to division administrator. I'm responsible for all the administrative functions in the division and work with various areas including human resources, finance, contracts, and grant submissions. I graduated from Middle Tennessee State University with a Bachelor of Arts degree and Trevecca University with a Master of Business Arts degree. I raised my son in Laverne, participating in the recreation leagues and volunteering within the community. I'm a member of Box 100, the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, in the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Also, I have volunteered with the Baseball and Softball League since 2020. I love this community, and I appreciate your support in voting for me as your alderman.
Thank you. Next will be Kara Hobbs.
Good evening. My name is Kara Hobbs, and I'm honored to offer my services as a candidate for Alderman of Laverne. In 2007, my husband purchased his first home here just across the street from Laverne High School. A few years later, we married and put down our roots and made it our first home together. In 2017, we built our forever home in the Ridge in the South Waldron community and welcomed our daughter and future student of Rock Springs Elementary. After relocating to Tennessee in 2011, I attended Tennessee State University, receiving a Master's of Science in Nursing. I've spent the last decade serving Rutherford County as a nurse practitioner, and I'm currently employed as a primary care provider in Murfreesboro. In addition to serving our local community, I spend much of my spare time involved in international mission work. I serve on the board of directors of a nonprofit organization for the prevention of human trafficking in Cambodia and Southeast Asia, known as Freedom's Promise, where I serve as the medical missions coordinator. Since 2015, I've led several other medical missions serving the oppressed populations of India, Cuba, and Africa. I've openly expressed my concerns in public formats about the rapid growth of our city, development pushing forward without proper planning or infrastructure, and without considerations for preserving the characteristics of our existing neighborhoods. I'll voice my desire to see our city elevated to the quality of life we all deserve. There's so much positive development occurring around our city, yet I feel Laverne has been left feeling stagnant and immune to this prosperity. As your alderman, I would strive to bring responsible growth to our city, elevating the quality of life for the citizens of Laverne by revitalizing our neighborhoods and applying for additional grants to do so. The only effective accomplishment is through collaboration with our citizens, including those that are not elected or in appointed positions, and in a form that allows us to engage the community in decision-making and what's best for our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Next will be Kathy Tyson.
Hello, my name is Kathy Tyson. I am running for Laverne Alderman, and I want to thank Ms. Seward, Ms. Ibarra, Commissioner Oliver for coming today, Ms. Cohn, and Ms. Black, as well as everyone in our audience here and whoever is watching. I also want to thank all the staff for staying late tonight, running the equipment, and generally supporting all the candidates. I do have some experience to talk about, but I'm going to talk about personal things. I have lived here in Laverne for 20 years. I'll be married 36 years in December. I always joke and say we've been married twice, but we actually renewed our vows. I have two daughters. One of them is in South Korea teaching English, and the other one lives locally, and she is the mom of my two grandkids, who are my pride and joy. Experience-wise, I do have a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism and media from Murray State University. I'm a certified municipal finance officer, a certified municipal clerk and recorder. I have written grants. I currently manage a multi-million-dollar budget. I previously worked at the National Association of State Treasurers, where we lobbied Congress to get tax exemption on earnings from what is now called 529 college savings plans, named 529 because that's the part of the IRS code that sits in. When I worked for the city as a PR director, I also did economic development. We brought Walmart Bojangles. Working with former Mayor Mosley, we expanded Old Timers Festival, built a playground, started the Christmas parade, and started the July 4th event. I am a member of the Industrial Development Board and a former member of the Historical Preservation Committee and the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. And I just again want to thank everyone for either watching or attending tonight, and to the League of Women Voters, thank you.
Thank you. So our first question, again, a reminder to our candidates, you'll have 1 minute to answer the question. We'll start with question 1 with Ms. Haas. So the question is, what specifically have you done to prepare to serve as an alderman if elected?
To prepare for an alderman if elected, I started attending the Planning Commission workshops and the Planning Commission meetings so that I can learn more about the zoning ordinances and the various other areas of Laverne that are of concern to the citizens. I also started attending the Board of Mayor and Aldermen workshops and the meetings to further my education in the way the city works. As I stated in my opening comments, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, so I am familiar with how city works, government works, having been deployed several different times. Also, I volunteered in the community. I volunteer at the senior center. I volunteer with the Parks and Rec. Anytime there's an event that I can volunteer, I'm out there and I'm talking with the citizens of Laverne. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs, same question.
Sure. Over the last 4 years, I've attended several planning commission meetings and the Board of Mayor workshops, along with the meetings as well. I often utilize the live stream if I'm unable to be there in person. I've met with our elected officials over the years, even met with others here today with previous experience to understand their perspective on the issues. I've also met with many of you, our citizens, this past year to hear your priorities and concerns for the city. My previous experience as a nurse practitioner has given me the essential critical thinking and problem-solving skills it takes to be an advocate for our city. My experience with international missions has taught me the importance of diversity and inclusion, adaptability to the needs of the community, and the necessity of planning and organization, strong work ethic, and the ability to give voice to those who feel that they've not been seen or heard.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson.
Thank you. I have, to prepare to serve as alderman, I have talked with a lot of residents. I have asked a lot of residents, what are your concerns? What do you want to see for Laverne? What kind of retail do you want to see? I have had many, many conversations with the people who live here. I have also had many conversations with the staff who work for the city to find out what their concerns are, and they do have some pretty real impactful concerns. As far as experience in preparing, I do attend the Board of Mayor and Aldermen work study meetings and the workshops and their regular Board of Mayor and Aldermen meetings. I have attended the Government Finance Officers Association conferences to learn more about the new laws with government accounting and what's coming down the pike with the government. Also attend the Municipal Clerks and Recorders Conference each year. And I talk to a lot of people. What's on your mind?
Thank you. Mr. Coates.
Over the past 20 years, I've loved serving the city and its citizens. During my terms on many boards, including but not limited to the Planning Commission, Board and Zone of Appeals, Economic Development Board, Industrial Development Board, and now 2 years as an alderman, I have the experience, integrity, and history to serve as an alderman. Thank you.
Thank you. For our second question, we'll start with Ms. Hobbs. So the question is, do you think the city of Laverne is doing enough to ensure that its citizens have safe drinking water? If not, what else could the city do?
I've researched this topic a lot the past week and a half, but I've not found a lot of data regarding this specific issue. I do have a colleague that is a senior engineer at the wastewater treatment plant in Nashville that I'd like to get more insight on this topic before I make a statement. Though I don't have an answer for this question this evening, I'm happy to take a closer look into the issue and post an answer to my Facebook page later this week.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
Thank you. As far as our safe drinking water, I know every year municipalities or utility districts are required to print and distribute a consumer confidence report. And in those, they will say what kind of problems they have faced throughout the year. If there's, for example, E. coli in the water, we want to know that, and that is in that consumer confidence report. They usually either mail it out or it would be on the city webpage. TDEC, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, they look very, very carefully at all utility districts, and they are making sure that if your water is not good, they're going to come after you. So I think that the city is doing a good job, because if they're not on notice from TDEC, that means they're doing a very good job. Also, several years ago, they did revamp the water treatment plant. It got all cleaned out, painted, and everything. So I'm hoping that has still been maintained.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
The water plant provides water that meets the national guidelines. We are continuing to upgrade the water plant to ensure that Laverne has safe drinking water for its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
Yes, I think the City of Laverne is doing a great job ensuring the citizens have safe drinking water. The Water Department is operated by Inframark and has been very successful. Danny submits a monthly report to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with accomplishments and challenges during the previous month. Danny is on top of any citizen complaints and is able to speak about those complaints at every meeting. He gives the citizens a personal touch. Thank you.
Thank you. For our third question, we'll start with Ms. Tyson. The question is, how should elected city officials use social media and other mechanisms to hear from and communicate to constituents?
I think social media is very important in any government function. I think that it is good for elected officials to use social media to be able to reach out to their constituents. My big concern, however, is I don't think Laverne, the city itself, is using it as well as it could be. As the person who actually set up the city Facebook page several years ago, a lot of the departments also have them, and I encourage that, but I would like to see the city page take whatever is shared by the police department, by Public Works, by the senior center. All these other people have their pages. We need to bring it together in one central location, and I think that way the most people can be reached without having a fear of being left out of groups or blocked by other people.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
On social media, there appears to be a lot of misinformation going out. And so I suggest citizens call me directly to answer their questions and for me to listen to their comments and their suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
Social media can be used as a positive means of communication. I feel face-to-face communication is more effective as comments on social media can be taken out of context. A chat over coffee can be more effective. Thank you.
Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, I believe social media should be streamlined and run by a professional public information officer who would serve as a liaison for the city manager, leadership, and elected officials in communicating with the media and public regarding breaking news, events, and long-term strategies. I do not believe elected officials should have sole discretion to disclose city business on personal pages or profiles unless that information is being shared from a city official page. Many social media platforms allow for censorship and unproductive debates that result in nothing more than heated banter and misguided text and gets us nowhere as a city.
Thank you. Our fourth question will start with Mr. Coates. Crime prevention is an important city issue. Please share with us how you plan on addressing this issue, taking into consideration your understanding of what solutions have been supported and recommended by the residents.
We get a monthly report from the police department, and the police department at the present time are doing a tremendous job of keeping Laverne safe. Some of the things I'd like to see the police department get involved with would be body cameras, which I think we are discussing as a board, and hopefully that will improve the communication between the citizens and the police department themselves.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
Crime prevention is very important in a city and in any community, and our police department is fully staffed at this time, which Chief Davis reported at a previous Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting. Also, safety within the community depends on the citizens doing their part by locking their car doors at night, taking valuables out of their vehicles, making sure their homes are locked up, and having situational awareness to know what is going on around them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs?
Yeah, I agree with the former two statements. I believe our police department does an outstanding job. Chief Davis does an excellent job. But one of the main concerns that I have heard from some of our citizens is just the concern for our youth, programs and support for programs that are in our youth. I think that's an essential part of what we need for growth in our city and keeping those juveniles occupied, doing something productive. There are several programs already in place, but I'd like to see our city give them some kind of support in addition to that. I also support Board of of civilians to help with any kind of input that they could provide. And it's not just our youth, you know, it's, as Carol had mentioned before, it's we need to be accountable for our own actions, locking car doors, making sure that our valuables are out of sight. But yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
Thank you. I believe that our police department really does a great job. But as far as crime prevention, I think that really starts almost in the cradle. We need to have, deterrence is a top priority. I think that if we have programs for our youth to be more involved and to meet the police officers and maybe do ride-alongs with the police officers, that would be great. I do agree with Alderman Coates about the body cameras. That is actually one of the issues that some of the citizens brought to me, that we need to make sure that our police have body cameras. That is for citizen protection as well as police protection. Another thing that we really need to talk about are our very, very dark streets. I think that, and this is something that will go hand in hand with crime, light those street lights up. If we have dark areas, make sure the light bulbs are changed or add the street lights in those areas. That's going to keep people safe. And then finally, before she stop, mutual aid with other cities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 5, we'll start with Ms. Haas. What do you think that city government could do to improve the appearance of the Murfreesboro Road area?
Currently, the city does have a grant from the government to build sidewalks on Murfreesboro Road, and they do an update on the progress of this grant at every Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. It is I think it's in the approval stage with some of the light studies and other, I would have to go back and look at the meeting to make sure. Also, storefronts, attending the Planning Commission meeting. The builders and the developers, they have a standard for storefronts now. Also, I would like to see more landscaping on the current storefronts. I think that adding plants and trees would also help with the appearance of Murfreesboro Road.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, I believe I would like to see our city implement the Tennessee Main Street Grant Program that would focus on design, economic restructuring, city promotion, and organization. The Tennessee Main Street Program is administered by the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development and follows a proven downtown utilization model developed by the National Main Street Center, which is a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. As your alderman, I would take personal responsibility in helping complete this application process, spending the last 2 or 3 months probably assuring that our city would be eligible for such a program. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
Thank you. I have talked about this on my Facebook page where I'm running for alderman. I think the city needs to set aside about $250,000, maybe even $300,000, to offer low-interest loans to businesses who wish to clean up, paint their buildings, beautify it, whatever. It would be a very strict process that they would need to go through, and that would include having bankers and other financial people sit on that committee to determine if they are financially sound enough to loan that money at the low interest rate. Also, we had an overlay plan where new businesses, as they came in, they had to put like the nicer street lights up. I have only seen one business that has had that, and I would like to see that occur more, to have nicer street lights, especially on the Main Street area. But I think that low interest loans to local businesses would be great to clean up their business.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
With the present overlay district, the new buildings going up on Murfreesboro Road have to comply with greater restrictions on building products that could be used for their buildings. And as we move forward with our new subdivision zoning and subdivision regulations, the citizens have already seen a dramatic improvement, and the new buildings have been constructed, and we plan to continue this in the right direction.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Hobbs. Do you support term limits for mayor and alderman members? Why or why not?
I'm in support of term limits for both mayor and alderman members. In supporting term limits, we support new people with fresh ideas that are strictly focused on serving the interests of their constituents during their short time in office. It also safeguards public service from those who seek to exploit it for personal gain. Term limits would motivate our board to be more aggressive in action planning, knowing their time comes with an expiration date. Without a clear end to their term of service, a sense of urgency is lost to address the issues that they specifically ran to fix. What's worse is they hold their constituents out, promising a perfect solution, keeping the issues at a valuable campaign talking point, even though their ideologically perfect solutions are impossible to enact. A hard term limit adds the pressure for our representatives to actually do the job we hired them to do.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
Once upon a time, many, many years ago, I was absolutely against term limits because I felt like that if you have a really good congressman or someone like that is doing a great job, you get the rug pulled out from under you and you lose that congressman or your state official. However, watching what has happened up in DC where people are members for life, I have changed that opinion, and I try to be flexible with my opinions. I think at this point term limits really are necessary to bring in new ideas and new voices to the table instead of having certain people at whatever level of government run roughshod over everyone else. So yes, I do think term limits would be good.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
I do support term limits. If you look at the city charter today, section 3-3-11, it does in fact include term limits requirements. However, it's up to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to propose the requirements, but the city would need to hold an election to approve the term limits.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
Yes, I support term limits for all government positions. I believe that's across the board pretty much. Term limits provide a new look and voice for the community. The first 4 years, a position starts to get their position in the community and initiates actions that may take time to fulfill. The second 4 years gives the position time to complete initiatives. After 8 years, it's time for a new voice. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with question number 7 to Ms. Tyson. How should the city of Laverne recruit and retain good city employees?
I think that's a great question. I think when you bring in a new employee, first of all, you have to do constant training. If there's an opportunity for someone to go and learn more about their job, I think that's really important for people to do that. Gives employees a little break from the office while they're learning. But at the same time, I think cross-training for every position. We need to have 2 to 3 people that know every single position in the city in case of an emergency. So cross-training, I think, is urgently important. I think that there are, again, talking to employees, sometimes I feel like they have expressed to me that they've been micromanaged a little bit. I think that employees should have freedom to do their jobs without someone standing cross-armed, waiting for them to come out of the restroom or whatever. But I think that employees should have some flexibility in their jobs, lots of training.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
This year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have given the employees a pay raise, and we need to ensure that the salaries meet and exceed the Middle Tennessee and surrounding areas. In addition, the city employees have good health and retirement benefits. This needs to continue to enable retention of employees.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
Having worked at Vanderbilt in the HR business for several years, recruiting experienced and good employees is challenging, especially in this market. The employment market is very competitive with salary, benefits, and the opportunity to remote work. Laverne has market rates for salaries and a great benefits package. I think a hiring fair at least every 6 months would benefit the hiring process. Also participate in other hiring fairs in the area. Reach out to veterans organizations, the National Guard in Smyrna, and possibly up in Clarksville as soldiers are coming out of the military and looking for positions. Come to the great city of Laverne. We have a lot of opportunities. And also work with other hiring agencies agencies in the area to join them in the hiring process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs?
I do agree our city has great employee, competitive salary, benefit packages, but I also want to start the question by just saying, I think our city does have good employees. However, I'd like to see these employees have the autonomy to fully function within their position. And I think through that professional fulfillment and helping achieve their professional goals would help retain them here in the city, giving them that autonomy to do their job. I do think that there is an area of improvement for new openings and city positions, and I think we should look within our city for those positions. I've spoken to many of our citizens. Many of you have experience in grant writing. You've done a lot of great things, and I think there are several of you that are eager right here in our own city to serve your city in that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coates, we'll start with you for our 8th question. What do you see as the role of city government in meeting the needs of an increasingly diverse population within the city of Laverne?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What do you see as the role of city government in meeting the needs of an increasingly diverse population within the city of Laverne?
To lead by using my experience and leadership qualities that I have gained during my time of working on many boards within the city, included but not limited to ensuring that citizens are safe and their emergency services have the equipment and training to perform their functions.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
The role of city government in meeting the needs of the diverse population in the city of Laverne is hosting more ethnic events. Some ways are working with the Arts and Beautification Committee that was just newly formed in recruiting community artists for murals around the city showing the different ethnicities, reaching out to the residents to participate when there are committee vacancies, and also volunteer events within the community, inviting ethnic food vendors to city events such as Old Timers Festival and the Block Party, and encourage participation in the rec leagues by coaching teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, I think the most important thing is just acknowledgement of these communities. I know at our Old Times Festival, that was the day of the Mexican Independence Day, there was no formal recognition of that. I mean, granted, we all saw the beautiful costumes and the floats, and got a little bit of cultural diversity and education if you chose to interact with those individuals. But I think that would have been an area of improvement for us to recognize them, and important for their community that we recognize their Independence Day. Also know that there's been a young woman in the community that's had tried for the past several years in Juneteenth efforts to celebrate their community. And I just don't see the city support behind that. So I would love to see us get behind some of those, our citizens that are trying to bring these issues to light. And most importantly, representation across our boards. I would love to see somebody on BOZA, just with cultural diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
So city government, the first and most important main function is the protection of life and property. And I think that given the amazing police and firefighters we have, police officers, firefighters, and their leadership, I think that Laverne is doing a great job in the protection of life and property. I think the quality of life here in our town is urgently important, but again, the city is addressing the quality of life through the Parks and Rec programs, although I would like to see exit surveys as people do participate in activities to get ideas from the public, what they would like to see, what they thought of the event. Library is wonderful. I think the staff does a great job cleaning and maintaining the city. But also infrastructure, I think, is a huge role for the city, making sure the roads are paved, potholes are filled, water, the water is clean and safe, and then also the sewer the wastewater as it leaves the plant to make sure it's good when it goes to Nashville.
Thank you. For our 9th question, we'll start with Ms. Haas. Do you support additional growth in the South Waldron Road area?
Additional growth in any community is a positive project, regardless of if it's in South Waldron Road, or if it's in the Lake Forest area, or if it's in the old Nashville Highway area. Currently, the administration is working on economic development and growth, which also would bring in more tax dollars, which would allow the budget to support more activities within the Laverne area. So development is good, growth is good, brings in more tax money. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, as a resident of the South Waldron community, I don't realistically think anyone in our neighborhood anticipated the agricultural land would stay that way forever. What was anticipated was additional developments similar to what already exists there, such as Woodsong, Pinnacle Point, Martins Bend, McFarland Point, or even the Ridge where I live. I do support growth in the Waldron Road community, but I support growth that's within the character of our existing neighborhood. I don't support high-density housing or commercial development in this community that has been long preserved as single-family homes for decades.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
I do support growth, but I want to see it to be smart growth. And that is planning for infrastructure in advance of rezoning into some high-density housing. We've got very narrow roads out in the South Waldron area, and I hear constantly about big trucks driving off the road, blocking. Growth is great, but it has to be smart. We need to also partner with the county to make sure the schools are ready for that type of growth. I think that zoning originally 20, 30, 40 years ago was put in place for a reason. And I think that as we have on the wall up here, honoring our past, building our future, we need to remember in our past why that was designated a certain way. Smart growth is great. Let's keep that up. But plan for the infrastructure first.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
Yes, I do support the additional growth on South Waldron Road, providing the growth is controlled and the city guidelines are met. As like most cities, Middle Tennessee's growth is inevitable. We must manage the growth correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last question before closing remarks, we will start with Ms. Hobbs. If elected, what would you most like to accomplish during your term in office?
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hobbs?
You said Ms. Hobbs?
Yes, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, so this is the last 1-minute question before we move to closing statements.
Okay. So the question.
Yeah, let me repeat the question. So if elected, what would you most like to accomplish during your term in office, Ms. Hobbs?
I would like to see an increase in grant writing. I'd like to see a volunteer board of professionals, as I mentioned before. There are several in this community with experience with that. Come together and collaborate with Ms. Sadler, who is our current grant writer, for her to lead a committee in the process of obtaining funding. There are millions of dollars within the past 4 years that has gone by the wayside because of the lack of manpower and oversight in this particular area. Many residents I've spoke with have volunteered their time and expertise in this area to serve our city, and I think we need to utilize this. I would also like to personally be responsible for collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers in revitalizing the Hurricane Creek Rec area. It's been absolutely heartbreaking for me to see residents eating their picnics among geese feces on our banks. There's no reason we can't do better for our citizens in providing minimum requirements of a picnic area and a pavilion.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
If I am elected, some of the things I would like to accomplish is I think that people who represent the city, whether as an employee or as an elected official, need to understand accountability. I see a lot of times on social media, people who have accepted gifts that are valued at more than $50. That would be an up to 1 year in jail as a Class A misdemeanor and a possible $4,000 fine. We need to, the employees and other people need to be aware of that $50 limit. I would also like to see the city open its own animal control office. We've got a lot of feral cats and stray dogs that we can afford to open our own. And then finally, I think that the city did accept or hired an ombudsman for employees. I want to see an ombudsman for the people. Now, elected officials, they do act as that voice for the people, but people have questions about housing or bill relief, and I think that to have an ombudsman would be great for our citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
If I was elected, I would like to keep moving the city forward in the right direction and ensure growth and infrastructure that is required with the growth is adhered to, and complete the process of the new zoning and subdivision regulations and ensure that the needs of our police and fire departments are met along with all other departments.
Thank you. Ms. Haas?
If elected, I would support the continuing efforts for the economic growth in the community, look into creating affordable housing. I know at one time, several years ago, that was attempted, but once again, try and look into that. Continue efforts for the sidewalks on Murfreesboro Road, which we have the grant and it is in progress. Continue the support for the Senior Center and the Rec League in the community, support other organizations that provide services to the community, and continue the positive growth of the police and the fire departments to support the community as it grows and develops, and ensure citizens follow the guidelines of the zoning ordinances and the code's regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to closing remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to share their closing remarks. We'll start with Ms. Tyson.
Oh, goodness, I get to start. I really do love this city. I have been very active for the about 20 years that I've lived here. About a year ago, a couple of friends and I started a foundation called the We Are Hope Foundation, where we did bring blessing boxes. There are no food or qualification requirements for those boxes. Anyone who's hungry can go help themselves without only being able to get food once a month. We have also helped a disabled lady. We got a new roof for her. Southeastern Roofing provided all the labor and materials along with ABC Supply. I want to see more efforts like that. We had a single mom with 2 kids who didn't have heat or air for 2 years, and the temperatures dropped that winter that we were able to help her to 10 degrees. We were able to partner with Lee Company to get a new HVAC unit. I want to just continue to do that kind of work. I want to also, if I were elected as alderman, really ask some hard questions. We have, for example, in the 8 years prior to the current administration, the debt that was issued was $33 million. In these next 4 years, and including in the debt that's about to happen, they're at about $45.5 million. That is 25% more debt. Now, in fairness, they did pay off other debt. So if you take that debt that got paid off, it was only 20%, 21% more. I think that whoever is elected as alderman, they really need to ask questions when they're doing their budget planning and make sure that some of these budget requests are in line with what our residents need. Every decision made by this Board of Mayor and Aldermen is generational, and I think that people need to understand whatever you vote for today is going to affect us 20, 50 years down the road.
Thank you. Mr. Coates.
If I'm elected, my objectives are continue to be fiscally responsible to the city taxpayers, keep property taxes low, continue to cut wasteful spending, continue to support the improvements of necessary infrastructure for the city, continue to bring in more retail to the city, including more restaurants, use my experience of being on the Planning Commission for 20 plus years to manage and continue the growth of the city, support increased transparency to the city government, and listen to citizens on their comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haas.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for planning this forum. I love this community and want to ensure the continuation of the future growth and prosperity of the community. Laverne is a great place to live. Thank you to the citizens for watching and your support in the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening to learn more about us, learn more about me, and to learn more about our city and where we are going forward. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and you as our moderator for this evening. I just want to make it very clear that my mission is to know, love, and serve this city. To know you as my neighbor, my colleagues, my friends, and to serve those who have entrusted me with their voice. I'll always work in the best interest of my constituents, which in my experience has been a stark contrast to what's been delivered to our community in the last few years. I'm here for the best interest of the city of Laverne, but what's been forgotten is the city is made up of citizens, people like me and you that have worked hard and invested in our homes, our neighborhoods, and have families that have made Laverne part of our legacies. Over the past 4 years, I've served on the board of directors of Freedom's Promise and have focused on strategic fundraising and networking to increase annual giving from $500,000 a year to $2.5 million a year. I want to work hard to move our city forward and get it the funding that it needs to move forward into that place. These experiences and values that I've shared with you tonight have contributed to my desire to work for the city of Laverne as your alderman, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters in the City of Laverne, I want to thank all of the candidates for their participation tonight. I also want to thank the City Administrator, Bruce Richardson, and Channel 3 Station Manager, Jerry Davenport, as well as our Public Information Officer, Ann Smith, for their help in presenting this program on Laverne Television Channel 3 and making it available on the Laverne website and social media network. Early voting begins tomorrow and goes through November 3rd. You may early vote at any one of the early voting locations, one of which is the Laverne Multipurpose Building. On Election Day, which is November 8th, you will be able to vote at any one of the voting centers located throughout Rutherford County. To find out which location will best work for you, or if you're interested in voting by absentee ballot, please visit the Rutherford County Election Commission website at election.rutherfordcountytn.gov. Please exercise this important right to determine who will be on the Laverne Board of Aldermen. Remember, your vote counts. May we please close with a round of applause for all of our candidates.